We're Gucci. We're here.
Okay.
All right. So, give me literally 1 second. I just want to make sure my second monitor is working with the stream. Okay. Looks like it's
Cool.
good. Awesome. So, what is cracking? What's popping? What's shaking, everybody? I feel like it's been a while. Did we took last week off? Yes, because of me.
Yes.
I'm
Cause
sorry,
it,
y'all.
cause of you.
I was the reason we took last week off, okay? But granted, like, I didn't really want to go into last week without seeing Batman and say Batman came out that Thursday or Friday. And yeah, we just, listen, I took the time to look at it, review it, take some mental notes. And now I think I'm fully prepared to discuss the Batman. So, Grace, it's been a while. What's up? How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I'll be honest, I feel like I got so used to the weekly, frequency we've been keeping up that skipping last week
Mm-hmm.
felt wrong. Like
That's
my
how it
Friday
used to
just
be,
felt
though. We used to
so
do
off.
like every
I
other week, right?
know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Heathens, I swear. No, but I'm super excited. Honestly, I did actually like this kind of week to marinate on everything with this movie because there's just, I mean, it was 3 hours long,
Was
right?
it
I think a
really?
week was, yeah,
No,
it
it
was three.
wasn't. It didn't
It
feel
was
like
like
it.
two. It was like two. Hold on, I gotta pull up the exact. It's like basically 3 hours. Funny story. So we were buying the tickets for the movie, and my partner was like, "Oh, like maybe if we start at 7, so we come home like what, like 9?"
Mm-hmm.
And I look, I'm like, the movie's 3 hours long, and
Right.
he flipped out because, as you guys know, I live with the biggest Batman fan in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking up the time real quick because let's see, where is it? Yep, 2 hours and 56 minutes.
Sheesh.
I and it,
Man.
yeah, and it didn't feel it.
It didn't. It didn't. Like, say there were times to where, like, you know what? Before we even get in that, okay? All right. Because I was about to go in, but I text Grace this week that I had a surprise that I'm excited to share with y'all, and this actually has to do with my trip. Okay, for those who had tuned in before, they know, but if you didn't, I went to Oregon. I did a little road trip to Portland with my girl, and while we were up there, we went to visit a bookstore. Okay, and in the bookstore, I actually got a couple things for myself.
Yes.
So, say when it comes down to the first thing I want to show y'all, because this whole stream is gonna be DC related, but I do want to share a little bit of Marvel real quick. So, for starters, I bought this comic book, and it's called Kang the Conqueror. So I gotta prepare myself for this whole saga of the multiverse, and it's called Kang the Conqueror. Only myself left to conquer. So this is almost kind of tying into what we saw in Loki. How
Right.
every one of those kind of variants were taking out themselves in the season finale. So I'm really excited to read this comic. I don't even think it's a comic. It may just be like uh, a history on Kang the Conqueror. So I'm excited to kind of break that down. And then, just in case, whenever we're talking anything Marvel, whether if it's like TV or movie related, and we have no idea who or what like an organization was, I got the Marvel Encyclopedia. You know what I'm saying? So if we're
Bro.
chatting, you know what I'm saying, and we don't know, I'll be like, wait, hold on, Grace. Let me whoosh flip this open.
I wish you primed me. I would have had mine ready to show off with you because I think that's the newer edition.
Okay.
I have like the edition right before.
Okay.
And dang, I'll have to bring it next time. Next
Yeah.
week,
All
guys.
right. All
Next
right.
week.
So I was just excited to share that I got this encyclopedia and this comic book on Kang the Conqueror because now we're legit ready for, I guess, the next few phases of the MCU. But
We work so hard for you guys. Come on.
we're not talking about the MCU today. We are chatting about. Hold on, let me turn my mic down just a little bit. We are chatting about the Batman. So let me change the screen up real quick. And boom. Now I got the poster of the Batman dead center, and we're going to do this stream similar to how we did the No Way Home stream. I believe it was the No Way Home stream. Was it that, or
No,
was that
yeah,
another
that's
movie?
same format. Same
Okay,
format
so
that we
where
used.
we're
Yeah.
going to do like kind of like a review without any spoilers, just saying how we like the movie, and then afterwards we're going to take a deep dive, and I am going to put up the whole spoiler alert little image that I had before. So, Grace, I feel like I've done a lot of talking in the beginning. You go ahead and start this thing off.
I'll take it away. All right, guys. So trying to keep it spoiler free as we're just giving like our generalized opinions of this film. Honestly, I think that everything we expected with having seen the trailers, hearing some of the commentaries with directors, actors, etc., I think this film delivered in what we were so excited to see, which was the broodiness, the moodiness, the noir, the goth. Like it's just Batman in a way that we've never seen him before. I think we really got to explore an area that I don't think has ever been lit up in the way that this film was. We've seen little pieces of it in prior films, but I just think this film like knocked it out of the park. I've always been firm on my favorite Batman. My favorite Batman has always been the Dark Knight Batman, just because I think the Joker Batman relationship played out so well that's always been highlighted in my mind. But this is like firmly my
Right. I'm
favorite
trying to
Batman
I'm trying to
film.
find that text that you sent me. You said it was the best Batman movie
Yes,
ever, hands down.
yes. So
Okay.
honestly, I think that's as much as I want to say because honestly, I feel like I'm going to start diving into more of like spoiler territory. So I'll leave it at that. But been super pumped to come and talk to you guys about it just because it was so good. I'm actually watching it again tonight after the stream.
Okay. So for me, I really enjoyed this movie. Like, say when it came down to it, I didn't even realize it was 3 hours. Like when you mentioned it, I think I remember walking out. Say we saw an 8 o'clock showing, and yeah, I didn't think about it too much, but we ended up leaving at like 11 something. So yeah, I see it being like a 3 hour movie. I didn't really think about it then, just because as soon as I left the theater, I was just replaying everything that I saw,
Yeah.
and everything just looked great. And without spoiling anything, right? We already got an idea of what the movie's gonna be, what character is gonna look like, and I'm gonna kind of dive in a little later. But I was super impressed with Colin Farrell, his version of the Penguin, and I'll throw that image up a little later. But yeah, I give this, if we're gonna go to the tier system that I introduced Grace to the last stream, I would put this in the S tier. So this is like right above the A when it goes to A B C D. So I'm gonna put that top tier for the Batman.
Absolutely. I
Okay.
think it fits so well. Yes. Oh, by the way, guys, before we move forward, can we just appreciate the fact that we're in like matching uniform today? This was
Mm-hmm.
not planned.
It
We're just so
wasn't. It really
connected.
wasn't. And right before like I hit start on this stream, like I hit Grace and she's like, "Oh look," and I was like, "Look at that, twins! We're twins today." So if y'all haven't already, go hit that link in our bio. You know what I'm saying? Check out the merch. Get one of these shirts. I'm gonna.
Match with us. Be part of the squad.
Yes, exactly. So I'm right now. I'm flashing the big spoiler sign right here, okay? Because this is where we're going to do our deep dive, and I'm going to keep the small little sign up in that top corner here. So, the Batman. Say when it comes down to the Batman, before we get into any other character, okay? I'm going to bring up an image of Robert Pattinson, okay, which he did an awesome job. And it reminded me of something that I recently thought about in watching the 89 Batman. Because I watched that like maybe a month or two ago, just rewatched it, right? And when I watched it, I think I had more so an adult look as opposed to like the first watch when I was a kid, to where I was thinking of how damaged Bruce Wayne is. And when it comes down to this movie, to the Batman, Robert Pattinson played the damaged Bruce Wayne, and he played it real well. It wasn't like a flashy Bruce Wayne, super cool, because that's what I know him to be. When I was super young, I was like, Batman super cool because he's super rich and he's Batman, you know?
And he
Yeah.
gets the ladies.
Right. And he gets to beat up people, but like it wasn't until again I watched the 89 Batman to where it's like, shit, he's more so like I hear all the comments of other characters saying like he's they call him like a psycho or a nut or whatnot. But when it came to watching this, and then let's say his final conversation with the Riddler in jail, I'm just like, he is, I feel, and I think he has some mental issues, okay? And you may call me the bad guy in saying that, but I understand that he went through something traumatic. But as far as how Riddler kind of compare them like to each other, I feel like to me the Riddler made sense to where he is like at first glance, right? When we first get a sight of the Batman and he's walking through the house with he's not commissioner yet, but with Gordon, he looks super awkward. He doesn't look cool. Everybody's looking at him like, who is this? Why is he here? And he looks stiff, you know? And I don't know if it's just with that thinking about it, I was like, I think Robert Pattinson is playing the more so awkward role of Bruce Wayne. You know, he hasn't yet, like you explained, this is year two, so
Yes.
he's still kind of feeling it out. But all in all, it was dark, it was good, and he did a great job.
And just to kind of continue with what you were saying, I think that they played off like, the early years of his vigilantism so well because it's so raw. It's like before he's really refined, why he is Batman, because as we see the film progress, he definitely kind of changes his ideology behind the cowl and everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what's so cool is not just, I know, and I want to keep this around Batman for sure because there's so much to talk about before we dive into other characters. But
Mm-hmm.
real quick, I honestly, you see that for all like the big characters. You see it for Gordon, absolutely, Catwoman, who's right now fully just like Selena Kyle at this
Mm-hmm.
point,
Mm-hmm.
Penguin. We see it for all of these characters, even like Riddler and Joker and all of them, right? It's really nice to kind of fall into that second year and have them played in the way, just because you see the brokenness, you see the trauma. And I wouldn't debate kind of your assessment to say that, he's dealing with a lot of mental issues. That doesn't, diminish the character
Right.
whatsoever.
Right.
Most people are dealing with some mental issues. This is like an extreme, right? Like PTSD, the trauma, the anxiety, the depression, it all
Mm-hmm.
builds. And his coping mechanism really has been Batman, and you see the isolation, you see like, and this is a lot of conversation that's out there, is that I think this film use, Batman is essentially his identity, and Bruce he almost uses as the mask, right? He kind of uses the persona of Bruce to get into places that Batman wouldn't, like the
Mm-hmm.
funeral and things like that. And I mean, this is the first film where we really see where it's like 90% of the film, he's Batman. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? I feel like in other films, it's closer to maybe like 60-40, something like that, you
Right.
know?
Right. I
And
agree.
I
I totally
feel,
agree.
yeah, yeah. And I think it adds to like, displaying just the psychological aspect of where he's at. We definitely see Alfred trying to, shift him into seeing, you can do a lot of good as Bruce as well, not just Batman. And I think where we leave him at the end of the film, you kind of see him opening up to maybe being Bruce again, because I think it's a really big part of his coping mechanism to escape his pain. And there's another thing I wanted to add on to that. Like, oh, yeah, I think the biggest aspect also or component that's missing from what we see as Bruce Wayne is we don't see him as this like society playboy. You know what I mean? There isn't that component, which I think
Mm-hmm.
has been very strong in all the other adaptations of Batman, which I think is really cool. And so much so, I was watching a lot of interviews. I feel like when I see something that I'm obsessed with, and then it's like, 3 hours later, the movie's over or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
I like dive into the interviews because it's like my way of getting a little bit more of a taste of what I just saw. And I think they ask Zoe Kravitz and Rob Pattinson, like, oh, people are wondering if like this version of Bruce is a virgin, in comparison to like his playboyism before, kind of like Tony Stark.
Mm-hmm.
And both of them are like, oh yeah, like he's never felt the touch of a woman. Like
Mm.
it's really funny. It's just the commentary behind it, but it's such a raw version of Batman. Like I love it. I'm just obsessed with every bit of it.
Well, yeah, like say, and that's one thing that separates Batman from Iron Man. Like Batman made himself kind of based off of tragedy, and that made him more like uh, what would you say, like recluse or secluded or something like that, to where he was 100% introvert. He's not really out here. He
Mhm.
was more so on his own. He had Alfred and everything like that, but his main thing, especially in this film, it wasn't the social Bruce Wayne that we know of in the past that is always in a tux or something like that. This is like a Bruce Wayne that even Bruce Wayne playing Bruce Wayne, going to the funerals or whatnot, you look at him and you can see that it's like he looks damaged, like I don't even know if it's just like his face or whatnot, but you can just tell that he's not like you said, like a playboy or like just super extroverted. He's just, I don't know, he just looks just like he just likes being
You
alone. And
know
I
what
think I
it
think
is?
Falcone, he made a note to say, he's like, oh, I'm surprised he came out of the house or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it's even highlighted by the response of other people just seeing him out. Like it's like, oh, that's Bruce Wayne. That's Bruce Wayne. Like, and I think it's the woman who's running for president also kind of adds that with her conversation with him at the funeral. But I was gonna say, just to your comment of like, I don't know what it is that makes him look like traumatized, or you can see not traumatized, but you see the brokenness in him even as Bruce
Mm-hmm.
Wayne. Where in other adaptations, I feel like he hides that component,
Right.
really well.
Right.
I feel like the hair just doesn't look cool.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know, I'm sure that was intentional, but the whole time that he's like Bruce, I'm like looking at his, like, it looks like
Right.
licked
Right.
down hair.
Yeah.
It's just really funny. It just kind of when you mentioned, I
I'm
that's all I
thinking.
could think
Yeah,
of
I'm
with the
thinking
hair.
back, like, because Ben. I'm just thinking hairdos now. Ben Affleck always had his hair, slick. Christian
Yeah.
Bale, slick. Uh, I think I'll only go to think about Michael Keaton. I won't really think about the other Batmans in the other series. And I think Michael Keaton is the only one to where, honestly, low key, it was never really slick. It looked like he had a little baby fro, but I don't know. That's just, he has like super curly hair
Yeah.
in that. But yeah, you may be right. Like, cause say in this image that I have on the screen not right now, like I have image of Bruce and Batman on here, and it's just like hanging there, nothing really combed, and his face just looks like I'm angry. There's nothing really happy about this Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, it's you can tell it's early, not just in his vigilantism, but early still in like processing the trauma because I think he's been trying to find ways to essentially like disconnect himself from it.
Mhm.
And it's just, I'm so excited because this is the kind of Batman I was excited to explore.
Mhm.
And it makes me excited, as other films come out. Because I think, I don't know if they're in the early developments of the second, but there was been a little bit of talk about things already in motion for that, which makes me excited. But I'm looking forward to seeing him, wherever we see him next time, whether it's like 2 years from now or however many, because I think I'm just excited to see the contrast from this film because I think it just established it so well.
Mhm.
But it's, I mean, nothing but good things.
Yes.
Nothing but good things when it comes to this film.
And we mentioned it before in our previous stream on just the character Batman. Uh the we said the movie had to go dark. It can't
Mhm.
be a bright similar version of the Justice League or the first Suicide Squad. This, like, Batman is a dark character and it needed more so a dark movie, and I believe this director gave us that, and that's what made it work. And I wanted to kind of move on from Robert Pattinson because there's many other characters, and
Yeah.
by many other characters I mean not just Catwoman. Listen, folks, I didn't even ask for pictures, but Grace sent me these images. She's like, all right, I got my images for the show. And 90% of them were just Zoe Kravitz. I was like, can we talk about?
It's because I know you're not gonna bring him. I'm like, he's gonna take care of the pics for Penguin. I believe that he's gonna take care of this. I'm like, I know he's not gonna bring it. That's me. That's
Do you
me.
think of of these images, I tossed the ones that we've done in the past. I have every image of Zoe that you sent before this batch. Okay, I could have just grabbed those, put them up here. You know what I'm
I
saying?
needed to make sure. I needed to ensure. So I mean, and just because I sent those doesn't mean I have like it doesn't mean I don't have a lot to talk about the
Gotcha.
other
I
characters. I
gotcha.
mean, it's just that I think we have to kind of transition into Catwoman at this
Oh
point,
yeah.
Selena
Mhm.
Kyle.
Mhm.
And then we can kind of move into other characters. It's just I think that this Catwoman, Selena Kyle, Zoe Kravitz is just like so. I mean, everything in this film is so well casted, I think, but this just got me so excited.
Mhm.
You see her in just so many different costumes and looks, and
Mhm.
they fit kind of the wherever she's kind of falling into. She does a lot of like I don't know what to call it. Would you call it like espionage work? I feel like that's the word I'm kind of leaning on. But
Maybe.
I not just like yeah, I think that's the word I'm trying to spy work. I don't know. She obviously has the in to infiltrate things like the is it the iceberg club? What is it called? The
That.
iceberg lounge.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
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 Yeah, and it's I don't know, I'm just excited for to see her develop, but in this it's interesting to see Selena Kyle just so early on and way before she becomes Catwoman really. Like I think, her costume is just like a bike suit and then it's kind of like a ski mask that just has this mild like resemblance to the cat ears that we're so used to.
Mhm.
Her, costume definitely alludes to what's to come,
Right.
but it's just it matches just how early on we are with developing this character the way we know it. But it's I just think she did such a great job, and I think her with Batman and just kind of how they play off each other, the chemistry,
Mhm.
I feel like just it played really well on screen. um uh, so many things.
So
I'm gonna let you talk.
So when it comes down to Selena, I wanna talk some movie stuff real fast. Uh, is was she wasn't related to who she was trying to find, right? Was it just more so a friend?
No, I think they were trying to suggest that she was bisexual, and I think I saw like that was like a partner of hers,
Mm-hmm.
with the way that she's talking to her on the phone. And I think there was an interview with Zoe Kravitz where she confirmed that she was trying to play the
Mm-hmm.
role in that light. So I think that's what the connection was with the like the blonde character. I can't remember her name, but the one that
Yeah.
basically got Batman to find Selena.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So with Zoe Kravitz, okay, because I'll say my piece.
Do it.
She was a great Catwoman, okay, and every look that she did, she looked amazing. Like
Fierce.
I have this one image with the short reddish hair, and she's walking through the iceberg lounge, and look like I'm by this point she has like the contact lens in, and she's pretty much scoping the scene, like looking at faces
Mhm.
just so Batman can get some facial recognition. But like this look in itself, like this may be the only image that I took from your batch, because right now I think it's the best one, and that's when I feel like she looked, let's say, the hottest in the film. You know, even though she looked great throughout the rest, right now, like she was looking pretty bomb here, and just her whole story of the reason why she wanted to take down Falcone, and come to find out that he was her dad, like that added another layer to just the story of Gotham in general, not just Batman, but Gotham. Because, say, one of the reasons why I enjoyed this movie so much is it wasn't directly focused on the normal villains of the Joker, Two Face, Riddler, or like anybody else, right? Batman has always had the story of the mob being uh, kind of running Gotham, but it's never really highlighted in films. Like they did a little bit more so in the Dark Knight trilogy, but then in every one of those movies, it went back to focusing more so on those main villains like Ra's al Ghul, then the Joker, and then Bane. You know, we didn't really get too much of the mob related here in the trilogy, but here this was more so a Batman and the mob movie with a hint of the Riddler and a sprinkle of the Penguin, if that makes sense, you know, because this
That totally makes
the
sense. Yeah.
Penguin, he didn't play a role like Danny DeVito did in Batman Returns. It was more so he was kind of like a Batman background character that was related to the mob. So I think, if anything, I think he is getting maybe a spin-off series. I think I read something like that on, yeah,
HBO.
on
Yes.
HBO Max, and HBO Max holler. But and anyway, when it comes down to it, yeah, this movie was a little bit more mob related in the fact that Selena was related to the mob. I like that they made that connection, even though that may not, if anything, it may not be a thing in the comics. I'm glad that in this universe she was somehow connected to the mob.
And it is in some storylines. She has that same relationship with Falcone. And before we go back to kind of Selena, because there's a couple of things I do want to revisit, just to add to what you were saying about Gotham and the corruption, right? I feel like this is probably my favorite representation of Gotham that we've seen yet, because it almost serves like its own character in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Not just like the cinematography at all and like the saturation of the film and all of that, but I think it just properly displayed all of the little things that we expect from Batman and Gotham, which is like the corruption,
Mm-hmm.
the danger, the instability, the divide between the upper class and the lower class of
Right.
Gotham, and just how contrasted that is.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I remember after watching this, I was telling my partner, I'm like, I just want to like drop different storylines or drop different characters into that world and see how they live there, because I think the setting is just so perfect to see different stories kind of come to play
Mm-hmm.
and other characters too. It's perfect as it was just
I
perfect.
think
Everything about it.
hold on one
Go ahead.
sec. I think this movie and the Joker, those two movies, they were successful in more so putting out the difference between the upper and lower class of Gotham City. It wasn't really much of a focus in the previous films, but like,
Hmm.
say here in the Batman, you kind of get an idea, a better idea of the history of Gotham, like you mentioned it, because as much as these movies are more so about Batman. Batman wouldn't be Batman if Gotham wasn't the way it is. And I feel like this movie kind of made it like clear as to why he was doing what he was doing.
That's yeah, honestly, so perfectly said. So perfectly said. And to revisit kind of Selena Kyle really quickly, um something I love
Mhm.
you knew. Don't be
Mhm.
surprised. So it's something beyond just kind of like the visual representation of Selena Kyle, just because I mean Zoe Kravitz hands down is absolutely gorgeous, and I think she just fills the role so well. There's so many different components to Selena Kyle. The attractiveness has always been a
Mhm.
component of it
Mhm.
from its, for her from her first appearance in Batman #1, and I
Mhm.
think you see it in every single live action adaptation is the chemistry between her and Batman, the romance, all of that, and just her attractiveness overall, her charm.
Mhm.
But beyond that, something that I really, really love that this film did is, and we expect this, superheroes, they're attractive, right? Like these actors don't train physically as hard as they do otherwise. It's just the appeal that we want. We want that sex appeal,
Right.
right? And but something I think has always been disproportionate, and I feel like it's so highlighted in the comic cinematic universe is that the female characters are always so hypersexualized in so unnecessary ways that are just disproportionate to the way the male characters are displayed, right?
Mhm.
And something I really like about this film is that there's not like an unnecessary like objectification, if you will,
Mhm.
of the character. And something I love too is that not only is Batman isn't drawn to her because of her attractiveness. Like he's drawn to her because of her ability to help him on his mission. Like
Right.
he recognizes her contribution as a partner. He recognizes her skills. And as this story develops, I think that's where you kind of get more of the romance and the more like of their chemistry,
Mhm.
mutually, right?
Mhm.
And that's something I really appreciate of how they built it up in this film, because I think it's steering away from female heroes and anti-heroes and villains serving to just be the eye candy and the male gaze. And
Wait,
I love that.
let
I
me
think
ask you,
go ahead.
Selena Kyle side, do you think that people look at Harley Quinn as eye candy?
I'm so happy you brought Harley Quinn as an example. I like you see the influence of the male gaze in her earlier adaptations, and you can easily contrast it to how we've seen her in the films to follow. Suicide Squad 1, her outfit, and this is something Margot Robbie has made such huge comments on. It is so unnecessarily like exposing. She was like, I felt like I was wearing underwear. It wasn't even shorts in terms of her outfit,
Mhm.
right? And I mean, Harley Quinn is one of those characters that has been hypersexualized in films, all female characters, period.
Mhm.
But you see how when you have like a female director, like in Birds of Prey, the costume, it still like retains that fun element you expect from Harley Quinn.
Mhm.
It still is very, what's the word, appropriate for the character and what we expect, but it's not like pushed to say, um, in compared to Suicide Squad 1, or even like Halle Berry's unnecessarily super like exposed like outfit that doesn't have any purpose for what the character kind of is meant to be.
Mhm.
It's just so there's definitely a change in the way that we're being shown these female characters,
Mhm.
and it's something that I so appreciate. And looking back at other films from the past, I something I didn't notice as a kid because we just kind of accepted it as it was
Mhm.
is you see the contrast. One of the examples that I can think of is so I was a big like GI Joe fan, and I don't remember which movie it is, but there's one of the movies, and I think she's supposed to be either like GI Jane or maybe like a different adaptation of her. But I remember her being one of like the earlier like superhero-y like female roles that I thought was just so cool and so badass. And then I remember like recently I was like, I kind of want to revisit the film because I remember I loved it so much when I was a kid or
Mhm.
just younger. And I was watching it and I was so horrified by just how she was represented. Like she's supposed to be like an elite like athlete and so capable and all these things. And there's this particular scene where she's running on a treadmill, and I have never seen someone run so unnecessarily like bouncy. It's just you can so see the direction where it's like she's meant to be the eye candy. She's meant to serve as like that character.
Right.
And it's like I was so horrified because as a kid, like I didn't notice this. This is just the media we're given and
Mm-hmm.
we didn't really question it back then. But the male gaze is super present. And just to revisit Harley Quinn, I have a client, all my clients just are so known of my obsession with all this stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of my clients, she watched Suicide Squad, and she told me afterwards, she's like, Grace, the hypersexualization of this character is freaking insane, and not just her as Harley Quinn, but even as Harleen Quinzel, the doctor. She's like the way that she's dressed up, and this particular client, she works in the adult entertainment industry.
Mm-hmm.
She's like the way that she's portrayed is literally so stereotypical of the way they would, dress and hairstyle and everything. A like actress in a porno
Mm-hmm.
in the scene of like a doctor or something like that.
Yeah.
Like she even said, like, she's like, it's so hard to believe that wasn't somewhat intentional, even if it was subconscious. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Right.
So it's definitely present, and that's something I appreciate in this film, is that of course she's attractive. Like that's just period. We expect that from both male and female characters,
I would like
but
to,
you see the
but I'd
capability
like
of
to interject here just because I know we're kind of going on a tangent here, but say when it comes down to the initial Suicide Squad and the time it came out, uh, you, uh, you know what? No, I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to leave it alone. Never mind.
it.
I'm good. I'm good.
All right. Women's Appreciation
Yes,
Month,
exactly.
Women's
Yep.
Day, everything. It's
Right.
we deserve
I
it.
don't.
We
Chill
deserve
is
it.
not looking to get canceled. Okay, I'm not
Come
trying to just
on.
have the comic cinematic universe with Grace. Okay, so I'm
I
just gonna
know.
leave that alone and appreciate Zoe for who she is. But moving on from Zoe. Okay, is that okay? Is
Okay.
that cool?
Oh yeah, that's fine. Fine. I'm cool. I
Perfect.
did my piece.
Okay, so one character that I want to chat about that whoever casted this character, the task of casting Jim Gordon, they have to be A-list. Okay, post Tim Burton, post Joel Schumacher, because that was the same Gordon. I think Gordon and Alfred were the only two characters that stayed the same throughout that whole
The
four
four
the four
movies.
movies. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
so those aside, right? We get hold on, I'm pulling up some facts. So The Dark Knight, we get Gary Oldman, who I love, A-list. Awesome actor, played a great Gordon. Then in the Snyderverse, we get J.K. Simmons. You can't help but love J.K. Simmons. Like no matter what role, but he was Commissioner Gordon. Even if it was for like 2 minutes on the roof to show the signal, and then the Flash is left with him on the roof, it was like believable. J.K. Simmons is Commissioner Gordon. Now we're here, and it comes down to who do we pick to be Commissioner Gordon here, and we choose Jeffrey Wright. Now, Jeffrey Wright has a history of doing so many just amazing roles. It's crazy to me why he hasn't been, or maybe he has been nominated but hasn't received an Oscar yet. But he's one of those like kind of low key, just like actors that just kills it every time. Like there was a moment in one movie where he played a Puerto Rican, and he had a Puerto Rican accent, and this was the first movie I've seen him in, and I swore he was Puerto Rican through and through, but he is black AF. You know what I'm saying? And they chose to go with a black Gordon here, which I am glad that they wanted to make a change, you know, but at the same time they chose right in choosing the actor, because I don't know right now who could play that role. As far as Commissioner Gordon, he's always been of the older generation, uh, up until they released the show Gotham. I only watched the first season where it was like a young Gordon, but every Gordon after that was like an older Gordon. So he is the right age range and the right caliber as far as an actor to play somebody in this film, and he did awesome. He was there to not only like support Batman. He's well, let's just say he's the
He's
only
ride or
one. Yeah,
die.
he's the only one in no matter what story that is team Batman. Like in the Dark Knight series, he was sad that he had to take down the signal in the Dark Knight, but
Hmm.
like their team, Gordon and Batman, and someone mentioned Batman and Alfred, but we'll get to Alfred later. So the Gordon and Batman matchup, it made sense here, and it was awesome.
It's I really like the way that we see their relationship. From like the first scene where we have Batman walk into the room and everyone's kind of like eyeing him, like who's. I think even one of the cops is like, "Why is this guy here?"
Right.
And Gordon's like, "Oh, he's with me." You see him stand up a lot for Batman throughout the film, which I think is just kind of sweet to see his trust and faith in Batman,
Mm-hmm.
especially so early on in his career as a vigilante.
Mm-hmm.
And and I thought it was really cool that they even snuck in the like that scene of him like looking around, and we get like the first sense of like Batman just disappearing in the middle of like a conversation
Right.
with Gordon. I think
Right.
that happens when I'm trying to think of the particular moment, but you know what I'm talking
Mm-hmm.
about. But I thought that
Mm-hmm.
was cool that they like snuck it in there. And I think who is it, Penguin or Oz, like kind of is also like adds the commentary of like, oh, you guys are a good team when they're having that whole like
Right.
interrogation with
Right.
him.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely like how they played it, and we see a lot of it establishes a lot of that relationship in this film. And I mean, it's a staple. Like you think Batman, you have very specific characters you expect to see in a film: Alfred, Gordon, etc. You know?
And when it comes down to Gordon, Gordon is one of those cops to where he is aware of the corruption in the police department, you know, and in this story or in another, it's always coming down to he can't handle it on his own, so he enlists Batman just because Batman can do the things that he can't. And Jeffrey Wright, he was here, even though like there was like a moment in the interrogation room where it looked like he was about to like be like, yo, chill,
Turn.
yeah, turn into a cop for a second. Like he just starts whispering. He's like, yo, just there's a door right here. Okay, hit me, pull it, pull your punch just a little bit, and go down the hall. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
he was just a
Yeah.
cool Gordon in this movie.
And I like that scene also because as he's having that conversation with Batman, he's like doing like mannerisms to assume that like he's,
Right,
kind of
right. He's
really good.
like giving
Yeah,
him
yeah,
like the business, like, listen,
yeah.
I told you, I need you to go out there and hit me. Just don't knock me out, like you
Yeah,
know.
it's really good. I mean, I was gonna say I love how, like because he's kind of shocked at the corruption that there or the I should say like the mass of the corruption in the police force.
Mm-hmm.
Like which I like his. He's definitely on the side of what's like the word I'm trying to say. He's it'll come to me, but I like to see that he has so much hope and faith in the people that he works with,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously, unfortunately, he learns that there's more corruption than he even imagined in Gotham, like not just within like the politicians, but in the police force and the justice system. And I like that he has so much integrity in what he does, and he kind of assumes that other people follow suit.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, it's like Gordon's one of those men that you can just trust. He's
Oh
a
yeah.
character you can like depend on. And I like that though. I like the way they almost like use the corruption as a way to highlight those qualities in him.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, was there anything else you had on him?
Not in particular. Maybe as we kind of go down the road, but I'll remember something. But I think that's the main points I have, at least for
Okay.
Gordon.
All right. From there, I want to let's talk about the Penguin for a bit Okay. Just
Let's
because
do it.
after I saw this movie, I told my girlfriend that if this movie came out on schedule, let's say it came out late last year, right?
Hmm.
Then by now, whoever did the makeup should have been nominated for best makeup for the Oscars, okay? And I know right now
Yeah.
the nominations are out, but here you look at the penguin and you can't tell that that is Colin Farrell, like at all. Not even through
No.
the eyes or anything. Like you're looking at him and you're just like, who is this actor that's playing the shit out of the penguin? And the makeup job, it was to the point to where a it was believable, and b it didn't look if it were CG. So really when it comes down to the penguin as a look, I give that makeup artist uh S tier again. An S tier makeup
S
artist.
tier
Yeah,
everywhere. No, like
exactly.
the practical effects of this makeup is just insane. And same, I think, we obviously knew who, the actor was. I think all of us were kind of like shocked to know he was going to be playing him.
Right.
And I think even like as we were discussing during our like fandom breakdown, we were kind of like skeptical of how they were gonna play it off. Like, we're so used to I'm spacing on the actor's name, but who's the actor who portrayed Penguin in the earlier film?
Danny DeVito.
Danny DeVito. There you go. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to make sure I didn't say it wrong.
All good.
I think with having someone like him portray the Penguin and so well, we were very skeptical to see this actor kind of portray him, but seeing him on screen, I was like, I can't see any of the actor. Like all I see is Penguin,
Mm-hmm.
which is so cool to just be able to melt into the character like that.
Right.
I mean, I was sold with the, everything, the visuals of it, the mannerisms, the accent, which is kind of like Brooklyn meets like Bronx
Mm-hmm.
in a
Mm-hmm.
way. It was
And I
just
think he's
perfect, really
either
well.
English or Scottish in real life. So, like,
I think
yeah.
Scottish. Yeah.
The one thing that I'm glad that they didn't do, in comparison to Danny DeVito's penguin was like disfigured. You know, had a super long nose and had like three fingers. Like these fingers were kind of molded into one. So he had the thumb, pointer, and these. And I was like, when I was young, I guess I was like, oh, cool. You know, he looks like a penguin. But like here, they made it a little bit more realistic. You know, and I feel like in any other thing that I've seen him in, whether if it's like a comic, an animated show or movie, he's never really been like disfigured like that. He's always kind of just been a short, stumpy man with like, is it called a monocle? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
has a monocle, you know. So I think that was really the only thing missing with this guy. Maybe in the next movie or his series, he actually puts a monocle on, you know. But yeah, he played it really well, and like he played it to the point to where I like the penguin. You know, I want to see
More of them.
more of the
Yeah.
penguin. You know, just because, like you said, it was like almost like a New York type of accent. But yeah, he seemed like he was part of a real life like Italian mob. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the energy he gave off, and he did a great job.
And I feel like this could be said with all of the characters. Like they fit in the world. They're
Mm-hmm.
they're more grounded.
Mm-hmm.
They're more like I don't know how to say it, but they're a more grounded period, more realistic. It's not as like cartoony and overdone,
Mm-hmm.
but it contains those elements we expect, just more subtle. And I like seeing the penguin. And something, and they only refer to him as Oz. Like you hear Oz, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oswald
You only
Cobblepot.
there you go.
Mm-hmm.
You don't hear him being spoken to directly as the penguin. It's kind of like a side remark, almost like behind his back type of thing. Like, oh, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so it's like just like all the other characters, still developing into what we kind of expect looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's before he's really the big like mob boss.
Right.
He's like
Right.
second in command to Falcone, and so it's really I'm obsessed. So good,
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah. And just with his relationship, or no, I won't even say relationship. Let's say his role, right? Because say we first get an intro of him owning the club with another club on the inside. I forgot the initial name of the outside club, but um, he's there. The first intro we get, Batman's beating up his bodyguards at the front door, but then like invites him in, and then it gets to the point to where after they have their exchange, I think Batman pushes up him against the glass, and he's like, about my reputation, and Batman was like, yeah, do you know about mine? And then right then and there, it's just like almost kind of like a standoff, between a hero and a villain, but the villain that's not necessarily a villain yet, because at the end of the day, in this movie, he wasn't a villain. He was just another character, to where it was more so Falcone that was the actual villain of the film.
He was like yeah, he was definitely like a side character. Obviously, he wasn't a good person, right? But
Right,
he's not
right.
like the main villain of the film.
Mhm.
It's like we're being introduced to a lot of people without them necessarily being like the big bad or anything in the film. But it's his presence was really good, kind of all throughout, for sure.
Yeah. So now that we're kind of gearing into talking about villains just in general, let's talk about the Riddler. Okay. The Riddler was played by actor named Paul Dano. Now, this is the only actor in this movie, I hate to say it, that was typecast for this role. Okay. Just because every other actor here has played many other roles and many other different roles to where they don't see the same, to where Paul Dano, he always plays a creep,
The
right,
sociopath.
right. Well, not even just a sociopath, just like a weird person. Like there was a movie to where I think he was mentally uh, disturbed. It was called Zodiac, and he ended up being, I think, a Zodiac killer or something like that. And then there was something else to where I was like, okay, in watching him in this role, was he perfect for the role? Yes, because he knows how to play kind of like a creepy person. But like in watching and looking at the whole cast, I feel like he was the only one that was kind of typecasted into this role. It wasn't just like a random actor like Tom Cruise playing a bad guy who's rumored for, what we're talking about further on. This was just, hey, we need a creepy guy to play the Riddler. We're going to get somebody who plays creepy guys all the time.
I get the perspective for sure because I think there's a level of appreciation for the different challenges the other actors have had to kind of face with just these kind of characters, which are so um I don't know, they have just very grounded elements that we anticipate for the character, you know what I mean? And there's a lot of, I think, diversity within their own like careers as actors. So I can see kind of like the not the letdown of having someone more stereotyped in the cool, but I see the like the observation you're making for
Right.
sure. It doesn't hide that he was like perfect
Right.
for the role,
Right.
and I think he did amazing. But
Mm-hmm.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
And just kind of as we're diving into the Riddler, there's something I really want to mention, with just something that they think they orchestrated so well,
Mm-hmm.
and that's just kind of provoking that sensation of fear and suspense. We don't see the actor's face until like the final 45 minutes of the
Mm-hmm.
film, and there's something about that mystery that I think just kind of adds the suspense, and then you get this really kind of abnormal, not I mean a very normal looking guy, but just with his mannerisms and everything, it just kind of adds to the character. But just pre us being exposed to the person behind the Riddler, the first scene where it's Halloween, right? Obviously an homage to one of the comics that this film is inspired by.
Mm-hmm.
You see the Riddler, but the character, right, like the politician who's running
Mm-hmm.
for mayor, obviously doesn't know he's there. There's like a aspect of irony in that, and it's kind of like Halloween, the like I think the 19 like 70s film,
Mm-hmm.
where it builds up the suspense because you know something's about to happen, but you don't know when.
Right.
And I think it's just such a really sophisticated way of like provoking that fear and suspense element
Mhm.
versus doing like a jump scare, you know?
Right.
And they did it throughout the film, and I just think they did it so well because even with the initial view of the Riddler, like in the trailers, like it's it's not this like this cartoony green like character.
Mhm.
It's just it's pretty scary. And I think once we see him as just like the person behind the mask, it's a very big contrast in a way because we have him first with like this deeper voice. Obviously, you can tell it's being like
Right.
manipulated. And then you have this person who's very like almost feeble, like very weak looking,
Mhm.
but he makes the character even more scary because you see how demented he is and just kind of disturbed. I think that's a really good word to put it.
Yeah.
And it just, I think all overall, like that character was so well done, but it was good.
Uh, this is again gonna have to go alongside with keeping the Batman dark, and I think that's something that uh we said before that Warner Bros knows that that's what they have to do, and just the Riddler in general. Kind of going off of this movie real quick. Um, they Warner Brothers did that recently with another animated film called Hush, to where Hush was more so. Spoiler alert! Hold on, gotta throw the signs up. But Hush was more so a movie to where this wasn't the green suit Riddler. This is someone who was, I think, killing a lot of folks in there, and it went super dark in that film. And here, they did almost a similar route, and a similar route in the fact that Hush's face was covered, just like it's covered here, So I think they did that right, and say here, even with the actor who played him, like throughout the whole film, like even from like the very beginning, like you said, like him just standing there behind the politician, you're just like, oh, like is he gonna say something
It's gonna
like
happen.
like
Yeah.
like hey, I'm behind you, like on some Batman, type type stuff, and yeah, and just the idea of him being able to build a following on the corruption of Gotham. I really enjoyed where that story was going to go. Because honestly, I didn't even know. Like, once the whole Falcone story ended in the film, I thought the movie was going to be
A wrap.
over. They caught him
Yeah.
at the diner, like, all right, they got the Riddler. He's right there. Boom. Movie's over. And I think you said just now, it's like, that was maybe with 45 minutes left in the film. And I was like, yeah, there was a lot more movie after that one scene. We already got another like 2 hours before that, but yeah, he did an awesome job of playing the Riddler.
And alongside that, I think there's something else I was going to mention. I'm just reviewing my notes super quickly. Oh, I was going to say there's such a fascination, I think, in general with like serial killers. I mean, I just feel like everyone at some point goes into like that mode of like, I just want to watch all these documentaries about these horrible things that have happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that's an element that I thought was really cool to explore in like a superhero film
Mm-hmm.
and have it be as dark as it was because there's definitely a lot of elements to resemble like the Zodiac killer with like the encrypted messages and things like that and like the having to decode like the different things that he's leaving behind in the scenes.
Right.
And it definitely kind of paints how he has like an MO, which is one of the things I think they first initially try to identify when they're looking at a serial killer.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's overall super good. And something that I loved at the end is how well an element that I think they took from Hush, the comic series, is that there is a person out there who knows Bruce's identity.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of like pulled us on that thread of us thinking that
Right.
that's where this was leading
Exactly.
with
Mm-hmm.
the trailers, with the way he's talking to Batman, right? He's like, Bruce
Right. Right
Wayne.
then, you're just
And
like,
we
he
don't,
knows.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it was so scary because it's like, that's big. No one knows Bruce Wayne and Batman are the same person.
Mhm.
And so as he's having that, developing that conversation, as he's already like in jail, like you think that he's talking to Bruce Wayne,
Mhm.
Batman.
Mhm.
And at the end, he's like, but he was the only person I didn't get, like, and then we're like, oh, whoa, whoa, he doesn't know.
Right.
He doesn't
Right.
know. And I thought that was a really cool element that they definitely took from that storyline, and I thought that was awesome. And just adding to that component you talked about with his following, it's definitely something we've seen throughout the different comics,
Mhm.
just because there's such a contrast with the lower, well, the upper class and like the lower class
Mhm.
and the divide within society. And I feel like when you have someone, even like a villain who's doing such horrible things, it's easy to find hope in someone who's highlighting the what's the word, the injustice happening in society,
Right.
and how the
Right.
elites just keep growing and they keep stepping on top of, like, just the citizens of Gotham.
Mhm.
And there's several different storylines that follows this, but the one I keep thinking of, and I mentioned it in our just Batman through the ages
Mhm.
episode we did a couple weeks ago, is it's called the White Knight, and it's the Joker who's kind of exposing a lot of the corruption in society and really showcasing how Batman is the one who has provoked a lot of this.
Yeah.
And he gains a huge following. Like, it's like they're, even wanting him to, he becomes kind of like a politician. He's getting a lot of influence, a lot of momentum in society. And, very similar to this film, he showcases how the Wayne family has been involved in this for years. And
Mhm.
so a lot, it's really cool to see just the different inspirations they pulled for this film for sure.
Yeah, like say in that conversation in the jail cell, right? This is where, like I mentioned earlier, Riddler had me kind of take a second look at Bruce Wayne as a character because, say, uh, he thought that he and Batman were the same. They shared the same darkness of wanting to rid the corruption from Gotham. And yet the Riddler went about it a different way and kind of more so using Batman as a tool to kind of expose it. Like in hindsight, he thought that
Like
he was
partners.
doing good for the city.
Mhm.
Um, but like him kind of talking to Batman the way he did, that's where it made me think again about the whole '89 Batman and the darkness of Bruce Wayne. It's not always glitz and glamour. This is someone who went through something, and even with Batman in itself, like Batman is not the traditional law enforcement. This is somebody going out in a costume, and that's another thing. Like his costume, whether if it were like tactical or whatnot, this was for me. I don't think it was the best looking costume out of, like, say, so far all of the Batman that we've seen. Definitely better than the Schumacher Batman costumes, but I feel like if anything, it was just something like either it was the cowl or the helmet to where I look at it and I'm like, this looks a little weird. But the Riddler in itself, he thought he had a friend and thought he was on the same page, but it came down to the point to where Batman is all for the good. Even though he may dress like a bat and do some vigilante stuff, he no matter what, he's all for the good. And I don't know. I just really liked how whoever wrote this made it seem as if the Riddler was kind of teaming up, even though he didn't. It was more so like they were on the same page throughout the whole film. At the very end, how they kind of tied it up at the end.
Yeah, and I feel like it forced Batman to reassess himself and what he's influencing in Gotham. And I feel like he has commentary about it at the end where he's, I think his whole thing has been like, I am vengeance. And he realizes, Gotham doesn't need vengeance, it needs hope.
Right.
And he's like, and I've definitely affected Gotham and inspired something, but it wasn't what I expected, because Riddler was birthed essentially of his out of Batman's like goal of vengeance, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why he does what he does. So it's a really cool concept, and I think it's very on theme with Batman, of
Mm-hmm.
him having to reassess and look at what he's doing and kind of refine his vigilantism. And just revisiting the idea of his costume, it is very different from the other ones we've seen. It's very like dusty and rugged, and not it doesn't have that like almost rubbery sheen
Right.
that the other ones have had. I feel like it fits well for this world, which is why I liked it. But I do understand like kind of like your gripes at it, because it's very different. And I do like the elements that look a little bit more um what's the word I'm looking for? Like soldiery, in that
Tactical.
it's just tactical. Like I don't know. Yeah, I like those elements because I think it just fits well with this version of Gotham.
Yeah. And I think with that, I think with you saying that, it just kind of brought the idea of Batman escaping GCPD, and you don't think that he's gonna pull out like the traditional like wingsuit, like, and this is the suit that you and I we
Oh
talked
yeah.
about before with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and we couldn't figure it out, but Batman ended up taking this out of, I don't even know, his cape or whatnot, and
It almost looked funny. Like it was
right.
kind of funny to see him like a squirrel.
Right, but at the end of the day, I thought it was cool because it again made it more believable. It's not like Christian Bale, who's able to expand his cape into some type of like parachute type material
Parachute.
that makes
Yeah.
him glide everywhere, or it's not like a jetpack or anything like that. It made it more relatable to how people can do something similar to that in real life, which is, I think, the closest
Yeah.
thing is, let's call it the squirrel suit, because you never got back to me as far as the
I
name
have
of.
the name.
Okay.
No, no, no. I texted my person and I just never wrote it down. It's on my IG like thingy, but I'd have to like exit on my phone.
Okay.
I will put it on our Instagram. Finally, I have the information. I spoke to a professional. I promise you guys. But it's kind of, and at the end of that sequence, we see him like, I think he falls,
Yeah,
right?
he
He
got,
doesn't
like, he tried to
land. He kind of has like a
make it under a
stumble.
bridge or something like that, and I think he got
Yeah.
caught and hit something. Yeah.
I just like it. I like the imperfection of his early career, because it just shows all like the refining he has to
The
do.
learning curve.
Um, the learning curve. There's a scene I think towards the end where he gets dragged by his cape, and
Mm-hmm.
I remember in theaters I turned to my partner, I was like, no capes. From like Edna Mode and The Incredibles,
Mm-hmm.
and I saw like a meme that someone posted like very similarly, and I just wanted to mention it because I thought that was so
Yeah.
funny. Um, there was another, I think, a thing I wanted to. Oh, something we have not brought up, and I'm surprised that we've been like doing this for an hour
Mm-hmm.
in, and we haven't talked about like the detective element that's been displayed in this
Mm-hmm.
film. This was a detective story,
Definitely.
like, and Batman is the greatest detective, like this, he's not there yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's still, again, refining those skills.
Right.
But right from the gate, right, he's coming into the scene right after like the first killing, and he's taking in all this observation and making things, or calling out things that even detectives on scene, who were obviously there for a while, hadn't noticed, right? He's like looking around, and as he's like kind of like focusing on one area, like one of the detectives will look and be like, oh, okay, I got to collect this. I got to write this down, And
Right.
so obviously he's also trying to just capture these visual images with like the lenses. But I thought it was so cool how you can see the thought process behind a lot of this. And you see it throughout the film. Like they get a thread, they just keep following the thread, and that's really like
Right.
the setup of the plot of the film. And that's an element we haven't really explored this intimately in previous Batmans, which I think is kind of
Well,
like
I
crazy,
think that coincides with what we mentioned earlier, as far as he was Batman for 90% of the film, maybe even 95% of the film, and Batman, as we know it in any other movie, whenever he's Batman, he's crime fighting. He's always beating someone up and getting the whatchamacallit, the villain, right? But that, let's say, if anything in previous films, it's maybe like you said, I think you said like 60%, you know, we get 40% Bruce Wayne, to where we don't get much of the detective work until we get here, you know, to where he's Batman throughout almost the entire film. And Batman, especially in this film, he didn't really have Alfred in an earpiece, you know? He had to pretty much figure out everything almost on his own. Yeah, he used Alfred once or twice to help kind of crack the code, but a majority of this movie is Bruce Wayne figuring it out and putting pieces together by himself. So I think I mentioned this in a previous stream, not the last one, but maybe in a previous scene, to where um, if anything, they've never really done like a detective Batman movie, and this was that for me. Yeah.
Absolutely, 100%. And I think this is kind of a good segue to talk about Alfred.
Okay.
Because you kind of mentioned him here, and he was definitely like a collaborator. I feel like, Batman obviously is the detective behind all of this, but he collaborates with, Alfred and Gordon
Mm-hmm.
and Selina to kind of, follow those trails. But something I loved, because I think this is the first live action film, and correct me if I'm wrong, that follows the storyline that Alfred has history in the British, like, military. And before they even made like kind of concrete statements to allude that, I noticed when we first see Alfred and he's talking to Wayne as he's reviewing the footage, he has like this scar on his face,
Mm-hmm.
and I got so excited. I was like, "Ooh, clocked it!" And then I think a few seconds or a few minutes down in that scene, we see him trying to work on deciphering the Riddler's first note,
Mm-hmm.
and he makes a comment of like, "Oh, just kind of playing around with my old like service or something." He makes a comment that's a little bit more specific of like confirming that he did have history in the military.
Wait, wait,
Um,
wait. So are you saying that right now this is the first time, like ever?
in a live action film. I know that in the Lego Batman film, they like he makes a comment to say like, "Oh, I was in the armed forces and I can help you," you
Mm-hmm.
know. But I think this is the first time that they follow that storyline in a live action film. I could be wrong, but it is a present storyline in different comics, just depending on which one you look at. But it's part of his like his story for sure.
Can
And so
I
I like that they brought it here.
I'd like to interject right here, just
Yeah.
because. With that being said, I want to just bring up the the Dark Knight with that Alfred.
Hmm.
His whole story of the I guess the jewel thief in some foreign country, and then giving the jewel away and just wanting to watch the world burn. That
Oh,
was,
that's
for me, I
right.
think I understood that to be him being in the service when telling that story. So I'm
Very
sorry.
good
I'm
find.
sorry.
Okay.
I didn't want to debunk that like that, but I think there was that. And then I never watched this show that came out. I don't know what streaming platform it's on, but there is a show called Pennyworth, and that is the
Mhm.
story of Alfred in, I think, war times when he was in the military. So
Oh, I didn't even know about the show. Well, I'm
yeah,
not mad that this isn't the first time we're seeing it.
yeah,
I'm excited that this is one of the first films to really show it in that kind of like definitive way.
yeah.
And I like that. I think they also give this a storyline in the comics too that he's like the bodyguard,
Mm-hmm.
then turned kind of like a care giver of Bruce, and also kind of taking on that butler road down the
Right,
road, role down the road. And that's kind of how this is laid out in terms of his relationship to Bruce and the family, because he
right.
says, I was meant to protect you
Right,
guys, right?
right. I caught that. I was like, okay, I like that. I like,
It's
yeah.
cool. Yeah. I like this fresh take on Alfred, and
Right.
it kind of makes sense because the actor, the what's his name? You're so good
Andy,
at like thank you.
Andy
Thank you.
Circus.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Andy Serkis, I think, because he's obviously, I think, younger than some of the other actors that have portrayed
Uh
Alfred.
huh.
And I kind of like that because it fits with this narrative that we have with Alfred's, like, backstory. So I really liked it, and I think with this particular character or this adaptation of Alfred, he's what's like the word I'm trying to go for? I don't know, like you just see his contribution to the detective element of it too.
Right.
It was really good. I like this adaptation of Alfred for sure.
Definitely. And I just want to kind of throw a fun fact because I'm looking at IMDb right now. And right under Andy Serkis, there is an actor I wouldn't have guessed because we didn't see his face in this movie in Batman, but there was an actor his name was Barry Keoghan. Do you know who that is? As an
I
actor, do you
have
know who
the
that is?
not off the oh yeah, I know this.
Okay.
Yeah, I know this actor. He's from Eternals.
Exactly. I didn't realize it. Of course, we wouldn't have realized it because he
Joker.
quote unquote played the Joker, which I think, if anything, from what we saw or what we could see of this character, I feel like I don't know. I don't know if I like the disfigured face that I think I saw of the Joker, but maybe we get more of that down the line. Hopefully, they kind of clear it up. And but yeah, that's something I saw on IMDb just now. I was like, oh, that's the guy from the Eternals.
Yeah,
Yeah,
my partner had told me, I think, like after the film. I'm not great with the names,
yeah,
as you guys have clearly seen throughout the course of this
uh huh,
podcast. But yes, I was familiar and I knew that that was the actor playing the Joker, and it's kind of interesting because like I would not have clocked it. Like if it wasn't for the fact that like I had my partner tell me and I've seen other people kind of mention it on like on the IG and such, I don't think I would have known it was the actor because the voice is obviously very different than we've
right,
heard in Eternals
mm-hmm,
and all of that.
mm-hmm,
But I kind of liked the bit that we saw. I'm interested to see the full face and kind of digest it before I make my own like kind of opinions of it.
yeah.
It was so disfigured though that I was kind of like, is that Harvey Dent? But then obviously
Right.
like with
It
his
like somebody in the
yeah,
theater was just like, "Oh, it's Two Face," and I was like, I
yeah,
think that makes more sense just from what the face looked like, you know? Because every
yeah,
Joker
for the
that we've
dialogue.
gotten
Uh-huh.
has been like the face hasn't really been, I guess, necessarily disfigured. It was just like a huge smile, you know. To where this one, it just I couldn't again I couldn't really tell because of course it was behind the door and the glass or whatnot, but from what I could tell, it looked honestly as if it was like a severe type of like acid burn or some type of burn that Harvey Dent ended up getting. So initially, I thought it was Harvey Dent until he started talking, and then of course laughing towards the end of that conversation.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's very clear it's the Joker, but that's definitely like the process I had.
right,
And I was gonna say we've seen like the disfiguring of the Joker in like other films. We saw like the one in the like the in my eyes it's like the original one because it's like the Michael Keaton one.
right,
But you see kind of like just the exaggerated smile,
mm-hmm,
and then of course we have like the Heath Ledger where it's like evidently like I think like cut
right,
to make the
right,
smile, but we haven't seen it like this. And so I don't want to give my full opinions on it just because we haven't seen all of it,
yeah,
but I'm interested to see how it's going to look in its like finished form, you know.
right,
I have high hopes though with what we've seen so far. Like I'm excited. I'm sure I'm going to like it. But I'm interested to see this actor play the
yeah,
role.
yeah. So I did want to bring up a few more pictures before we head out because the obvious theme. Well, I don't even know. Well, yeah, it was obvious just because, say, in the letterhead that I have in our background is the bat and the cat, and I know we've talked plenty of Selena here, but as far as their relationship, right? I thought if anything, there would have been a relationship scene on scene, you know, like it just like came to the point to where it's like, yes, we got a kiss, maybe twice, but there was nothing really beyond that, you know. They didn't really have like a dating type of situation, you know,
Yeah.
like that is kind of portrayed in other things to where Bruce did date Selena Kyle, you know, and Selena Kyle knew that Batman was Bruce Wayne, you know? So I know this is year 2. Maybe down the line she may come back, and if they decide to make a continuation of this with everything else that they're doing at Warner Brothers, then yeah, they should kind of dive in more into their relationship. But I thought if anything we were going to get a little bit more of that here.
Oh, totally, totally. I have a whole like section in my notes that's like the Batman and Catwoman, but I didn't want to bring it up again, so I'm happy
Do
you
it.
did.
Go ahead.
But I definitely have the same expectations. They have a deep history in the comics, right? She has been involved since Batman #1,
Mm-hmm.
and in that comic, it kind of ends similar to this actually, in that she stole jewels, right? Her MO, that's she's a cat
Mm-hmm.
burglar,
Mm-hmm.
and Batman captures her, and I think he saves her from like the guy who was going to take half of the cut or something, because I think he tried to like um I don't know, to get the full like cut of like the steel or
Right.
whatever
Right.
what they
Right.
stole. And so then in that scene, it's like Catwoman and Batman have this like exchange where she's like, like you can come with me, you can be my partner, we can run off together, we can be the king and queen of crime.
Mm-hmm.
And Batman is like, I'm intrigued, but we walk on the very different sides of the law, so no. And so it's very, I think, in line with how we see the relationship in the its original form,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously it develops. And so a part of me was like, I wanted to see the sex, I wanted to see the tension, like the sexual tension, and like the heat between them, because
Right.
they have a lot of that,
Right.
and they, in certain, there's like a comic story where they get married, all of that. And so it's, but at the end of it, despite my frustration with not seeing that element of it in the way I was hoping, I do like with the way they left it, because it leaves us wanting more.
Mm-hmm.
And we know we're gonna get Zoe Kravitz to come back for future films. Like that's, I think, I've been watching a lot of interviews, and that's definitely like heavily
Yeah.
suggested. So I was worried this is going to be the last time we saw her. If that was the last time we saw her, I would be so upset. But she's definitely going to be coming back, and so I'm excited to see the romance kind of rekindle and continue to drive when we see that develop into something a little bit more concrete.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of going back to what I really loved about like Bruce's interest in Selena, I feel like obviously their connection didn't start off with like that romantic element. It was obviously like, they're trying to get from point A to point B
Right.
and solve this whole
Right.
thing. Um, and she's obviously has like her own interests in wanting to help Bruce, right? And that's kind of her thing. Like she's not a villain in that her mission is to destroy the world.
Right.
She's kind of like a just in her own self-interest. That's kind of just what she
She's.
does,
I
right?
feel like she's
Um,
always been that. Like the only time I
that's
feel
her.
like I've seen her in another light was in Batman Returns, to where she was more so out to get the guy who pushed her out of a window,
Yeah.
to where she
Yes.
wasn't necessarily a villain. She was kind of more so an anti-hero in that light, but um yeah, like she's never really been uh like a villain that Batman was just like, oh, I'm about to put you in Arkham, It's almost like it's always like Batman is on some, hey, I kind of just caught you about to steal this diamond. If you could, don't, and let
Yeah.
me take you
Yeah. Yeah.
out. You
Yeah.
want to go out? Like, let's run on these roofs. You know what I'm saying? Let's go.
Yeah.
And sometimes they more so tag team other villains. So at the end of the day, she's kind of more so not necessarily a vigilante, but she fights alongside a vigilante. If that makes sense.
It's when it's within her
Yeah.
interest, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
and I think that's very true to the character and what we expect of Catwoman. And I don't know, I like that his attraction to her kind of develops throughout the film, because it's not just based on like her looks, but I think it's like her ability and her character and her like strength and her independence,
Mm-hmm.
So watching, seeing kind of, or allowing the film to marinate in me, that sounds horrible, marinate in my thoughts, and like getting my full like kind of feelings with it. I'm content with how they develop their relationship, because we know we're going to get more. And
I
I like how they laid out the groundwork for
I
it.
just posted the one image you sent of like the comic book cover where he's holding Catwoman. Can you kind of
Mm.
dive into that, or was there anything you wanted to speak on to that? Because I have that one and the other one that's
Yeah.
called like the Girls' Night Out.
So those two are covers of some of the issues in the Hush series. So we kind of already talked a little bit about
Yeah.
it. And there's a lot of inspiration, not a lot, I would say, but just some inspiration in that, we thought that, the villain knew who Batman's identity really was.
Mm-hmm.
And there was another, I think I wrote it down. One second. I had like a little piece about the comic books. Um, Let me see. Oh, and the whole like idea that there's a reporter who was trying to get this information out of like, some secret of the Wayne family. So there's a lot of inspiration from Hush. We kind of did talk about the inspiration from The Long
Mm-hmm.
Halloween, Ego, Year One, and the other pods. But we hadn't really talked about this one, so I just wanted to make sure to bring it up. But obviously, and Catwoman's involved in this series as well too.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I
Mm.
don't know if I have anything else. Did you have anything else you wanted to add? Because I think I covered
Let me
everything.
see.
Oh,
Yeah, no,
wait.
yeah.
I
Go
did have
ahead.
something that I really liked. Okay. Because I already knew from the trailer that Batman was going to be taking all of these bullets. You can see, like, in the film, now we know that he's walking down the hallway in uh, Falcone's club or residence or whatnot, where he's just taking all these machine gun bullets to the suit. But fast forward, we get to the plot of the Riddler to take out pretty much everyone in Gotham in the stadium. Batman is taking these bullets, but it's not as easy as it was before. He's taking rifle shots, he's taking shotgun shots, and it's to the point to where he's hanging on for dear life because he can't move. Like at one point he can't move just because he is taking all of these shots to the body and know he's hurt. And he sees he finally gets up, like Selena pulls him up, but it gets to the point to where he sees he's in trouble or she's in trouble, and he just takes out like a random like adrenaline shot, and just has a little adrenaline port in his suit. He's like, all right, let me just open up this and stab right here. I don't know why I really enjoyed that, but like that just comes to show again how human Batman is. He's not a superhero. He can't just take bullet after bullet after bullet without receiving some type of damage. And here he took that damage and couldn't get up without taking one of those shots that I know that they have like in the military. So I thought that to be really cool that they did that.
I like that element. I think it just adds to like how grounded this film is. Another thing though, when I saw that, because the thing he shoots himself with is green, and that is not typical for a shot of adrenaline. So I
Oh my
kept thinking
goodness.
Bane. No, like I was thinking Bane, and so I'm like, I wonder if because this is year two. First of all, Joker is locked up in like Arkham. I don't know if it's Arkham
Let's
or
just
if it's just a
assume.
prison. I'm assuming,
Yeah.
right? And who else locks Joker up but Batman? So
Right.
I'm wondering if in the first 2 years of his vigilantism, like he's already confronted Joker at least once.
Mhm.
He's already maybe been, confronted with Bane, like earlier versions of these
Mhm.
characters, and maybe he's kind of used that like I don't know if it's I think they refer to it as like as venom. I don't know, but that like thing that he injects himself with to get all like juiced up,
Right.
like that Bane
Right.
uses. So I was thinking that's what it was, and there's been a lot of talk that potentially that's kind of like maybe a more refined version, because obviously like when Bane takes it, there's usually some like disfiguring with it.
Right.
And we evidently don't see that here, but I got all excited, and just kind of along that scene because it's in that kind of closer to the end where they're fighting off those different like Riddler copycats,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And in that scene where Catwoman pulls him up, so there's this kind of running joke within me and my partner where we'll be in the house and then he just like, what does he say? He'll be like, I am paralyzed, blah, like take
Like a
me out.
trust
And so
fall or
he
something
won't,
like that.
yes, yes. And my partner has so much muscle. His legs are like each weigh 100 pounds of muscle because he just lifts and he's amazing. But he'll just like do this, and I'm like, you don't understand. It's he says he's training me in case like we're stuck in a fire and he can't walk, and I keep telling him every time, like, listen, if that happens, you're gonna die. Like, I'm just telling you right now. Like, don't expect me to save you. And so
Use
when
your
that scene
legs,
happens,
Grace.
use
Use
your
your
no.
legs.
I've tried. I cannot. But so I like looked at him when that scene happened, and I was like, "You'd be dead." I was like, "I wouldn't lift you up." But
Man, oh
um,
man.
I know. But real quick, another thing, because with that, just kind of like that little Bane nod that I think we got in that
Mm-hmm.
section, it just reminded me of something I wanted to talk about that I wrote down in like the little the bat and the cat segment. And it's as we see Selena leave, or she like rides off, like she has a different intention now. She's like, I no longer have an interest in this mission.
Yeah.
My father is dead. All of this is done, right?
Mm-hmm.
She warns, of course, Bruce about this is Gotham is
Like the city
vulnerable
is
to a
lost,
power
basically. Yeah,
grab.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And it's not going to get better. Penguin, we see him kind of overlooking the city. So we're obviously suggesting kind of laying out the groundwork for his TV show and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But she says that she's going to go to
She said like uptown or something like that.
Bloodhaven.
Mm-hmm.
Bloodhaven, which is a neighboring city to Gotham, which is where Nightwing is kind of he bases a lot of his vigilantism. And so back to my comment that I made earlier when we're talking about just like how well the setting of Gotham is set up, one of the characters I'd like to kind of see live in this world is like kind of seeing the Bat family develop. I feel like that would be so cool.
Mm-hmm.
I think we'd have to have a lot of films for it to be developed well, which
Definitely.
I don't know if we're gonna get. But I wonder if that's to kind of set up. It's like maybe a nod to us being able to get something like that. But I just thought that was kind of cool. But
Well, it's
I
been
think
it's
that was
been so long. Like, say the last Bat family we got was it wasn't Batman Forever, but it was Batman and Robin, and then after that it's been strictly Batman, and then there was a hint that there was a Robin in Batman v Superman, but aside from that, we haven't had a Robin in say 20 years live action wise, so
yeah.
yeah, it would be cool if anything. If I would say it'd be cool for me if we got more so a Nightwing as opposed to a Robin, because if anything, Nightwing is a little older, he's a little bit more mature, and if we do get a Robin, I like the whole storyline of the Damian Wayne Robin, who's like the son of Bruce Wayne and is
Hmm.
trained by the League of Shadows. But all of this I'm taking from different storylines. I'm just kind of freestyling in hopes, doing my thing, just word vomiting. But if anything, that's what I feel like. That's something that we haven't seen live action wise, and I would appreciate if we did.
And I think to see it in this world would obviously give it a completely different take. And so I hope we see it. I much rather make sure that the story and the way and the pacing that we saw in this film is retained. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to mess with it because it was just so good. I think it'd be cool. Like I said, I just feel like it'd be so awesome to explore different characters or storylines in this setting of Gotham, because
Mm-hmm.
I just think it added so much to the film and the story. And I think just seeing the Bat family kind of build would be super cool. And we got a really great Gordon. Maybe this is where we get like a Batgirl.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm excited for just the future of this, and just kind of talk about like there was this interview that I saw where they asked Zoe Kravitz, and I freaked the hell out. They asked her like, so everyone loves your Catwoman. Like, there's been a lot of talk of like potentially seeing you share the screen with Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn,
Mm.
and
Get out
there's
of here.
obviously
Get
like
out
it's
of here.
leave me alone. Leave me alone. Harley Quinn cannot live in this universe because it doesn't match up. I feel like they could make it match,
The
but
only
I
way
just
that
was
can happen
excited to
right
hear
now
it.
is if somehow in this Flash movie he just takes Margot along and be like, hey, let me just drop
I'll
you
leave
off
you
over
here.
here in this universe. You know what I'm saying?
It's I don't want to mess with the like this just this concept. It's just so perfectly done, and there's just some characters that would mess with like the overall cinematography that we really have loved from this film.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to see Harley Quinn and this Catwoman share the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I do not think that they can like coincide. They don't mesh well.
Not with
I
not
wish,
with
yeah,
this not with this Catwoman, no.
no,
And if they brought
yeah,
a Harley, it would have to be, I'm sorry, a brand new actress, and her, I feel like if anything, a brand new actress to where they would have to take the time to develop that character.
yeah. So sadly, I'm just like I think either way you put it, I feel like we would lose components that we've loved from either side of it. So I just feel like they wouldn't be able to do it unless they casted someone different, which breaks my heart. So at that point, I'm like, I don't want it. I don't want it. But I just got excited that I saw an interview where they mentioned it because you already know, like, I'm just obsessed with both characters and both actresses. Like, uh, you know, take on the character. But I just thought it was cool that someone brought it up.
Let me pose this question to you, to not only you but the internet, because I think I want to post this question on the Insta. Um, do you believe? Because now, after you told me how long this movie was, uh, Warner Brothers is giving directors a little bit more freedom when it comes down to cause say right now this director did a spectacular job, and I feel like this was kind of like after kind of like the backlash of the whole Zack
Yeah.
Snyder and everything like that. Do you believe that the studio is now giving the directors to be a little bit more free with these stories and the
With,
times of the
yeah.
stories?
Yes. So with the response of the fans post the Zack Snyder cut, post Suicide Squad, the second one, it would be stupid for them not to just follow suit. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I mean, studios, they're always going to put their influence on it. Like they're the ones backing the films.
Right.
I get that.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously with the previous like Justice League and all and Suicide Squad even like their comments and their, influence just has destroyed the overall vision of the experts on creating these stories and creating these characters. So they're definitely learning,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm so happy because we've had a lot of conversations about just how well received like the Zack Snyder cut has been, the Suicide Squad, the second one, and all of that. And so and we've been in high hopes that this would set up the a place for them to be like, you know what, maybe we should just kind of let these creators do their vision in the way that they want
Yeah.
it. And so I'm hoping this is a good step to continue that,
It should, just because like
Yeah.
I would think, say the second Suicide Squad, Suicide Squad,
That was
but
just so good.
the second Suicide Squad happened, right? And if James Gunn didn't get the freedom, his own freedom to do what he wanted and put out what he would have put out, then we wouldn't have got a Peacemaker show. You know, if that makes sense, he wouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
And now I feel, if anything, what's the name of this director of this movie?
Matt Reeves.
Matt Reeves. Like now, after what he's done here, he has more freedom to do like, because initially I heard there was going to be like a GCPD show, but eventually that just recently it just got scrapped. But he can go on and do like a Catwoman series or a Penguin series, you know, because um, no matter what, this is kind of built off of his baby. That's right now, so far from what I'm hearing, the second highest movie to come out since the pandemic. You know, so
Mhm.
um, I believe the studios right now should give these freedoms because we're getting the positive feedback from the fans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the studios are going to follow the dollar signs, So, yeah, I'm excited because obviously these creators are getting momentum. Their stories are being received super well, and I mean it's proving to that fact. And like I said, if it's it would be stupid of the studios to not follow suit. So I'm excited that this is where we're trending, especially from DC. I mean, DC is doing it. DC is thriving. I'm excited. In terms of this Batman, I don't want it being connected to any of the other things. Like I like where it's living in its
Mm-hmm.
own little
Mm-hmm.
pocket. Which is why, despite my love of Harley Quinn and my love for Catwoman and my like want to see them on the screen together, I'm leaning on the side of like I just don't see it happening and happening well, where we maintain the elements that we just love from them. So I'm so excited about it. I think this was just really well done. Best Batman. What did I say? I was like, best Batman ever,
Hands down.
hands
Mm-hmm.
down.
Yeah, I kind of made it a notion. Like, say I was updating our YouTube earlier this week, and when it came down to the whole playlist of DC, initially it was called DCEU Talk, and I just I changed it. I changed the name from DCEU plus DC Talk because the that that this movie in itself, like you said, it shouldn't relate to any
Yeah.
other films that have come out previously. Maybe from here, this is a starting point to where this universe creates its own universe, and we get the other stories of, let's say, this version of the Joker and the
Yeah,
Selena
yeah.
Kyle story, and that's another universe in itself, which is totally fine. But yeah, if anything, they shouldn't connect it, and if they do, which I hope they don't, I just hope they don't try to connect it in this new Flash movie, because we've already got that connection with Michael Keaton. If anything, they should leave it at that. And this should just be something of its own thing. Like, this is the birth of a new Batman universe. So,
Franchise.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I don't want it to be tainted. And I truly don't think that that's the route they're going to be headed towards. And I feel safe about that. But, again, I just like I think they're learning to follow the guts of like the directors and the writers and all of that. I think they've learned from the mistake of trying to just follow the Marvel formula.
mm-hmm.
Like Marvel's doing their thing, they're succeeding, but I like the freedom that DC has in just creating their stories without needing them to tie into anything necessarily. I feel like it gives them creative freedom to explore, this something broodier, something darker, and potentially moving down like the rated R version where we see the violence even more heavy. Because honestly, with the fight scenes, especially in like the first one, he's beating up like the gang.
Yeah.
It walks the line of PG-13 to it's really well, I think. And I just feel like with Gotham and all of that, there's just so much to explore, and I don't want it to be tainted with other things.
Right.
But that being said, I agree. I'd love to explore other storylines and characters that match with that world and just kind of drop them and see how they're represented like that.
I'm starting to see the light in what you've told me in the past of um, DC kind of doing their own thing, because I've always been team continuity over here. And that's something that so far Marvel has done a great job at doing, and kind of connecting everything and making sure everything makes sense to where DC, no matter what, it's always been something different with Batman. It's always kind of been something different with Superman, and with all the other characters. Like, they just started connecting things in the DCEU to where now I imagine to where if they wanted to do something with continuity, then that's just going to be DCEU related. So
Mm-hmm.
far that's going to be Shazam, that's going to be Black Adam, and if they decide to do another Wonder Woman movie, she's obviously going to be in that universe. Now, the only discouraging aspect of that is being that we no longer have Ben Affleck, being that Henry Cavill or some
Cavill.
Cavill is a question mark. The only thing that I don't want to say I'm worried about is, are we ever going to get a live action Justice League? And I'm not just talking of the Justice League of the 4 or 5 superheroes that we saw here. I'm including the Green Lantern. I'm including the Green Arrow. I'm including the other people that are in the whole Justice League that we know of. Um, and if so, it just leaves the question if Warner Brothers has the capability to do that, to connect it, you know? So
Hmm.
that is, I wouldn't say is a concern, but that's something that I think about when it comes down to Warner Brothers having the freedom to do all these other stories, you know?
Yeah, as long as they do it and they do it well and they let the pacing of the film, I think, match where we can see the story and appreciate it. Um, Story is always going to trump the action. I think that's where they've failed in the past, and that they're trying to give us the flashy and the this and the comedy. And, they've been fixing that, and I feel like if we were to see the Justice League, if they can take the time to build it, I'm excited about it. If they're gonna try to push it in the rush that they did the previous one, I'm content leaving it where it's at.
Mm-hmm.
But with like I think also like the birth of the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, like it shows that there's a lot of characters where we've still yet to explore cinematically, and I'm open to kind of getting to learn different sectors of the DCEU that I haven't had a chance to kind of look at
Mm-hmm.
because they've been doing those really well, and so I'm excited for what DC is just bringing to the table, DCEU wise, standalone projects like this. I'm excited because they've been nailing it. I'm sad, however, that I think no, not Black Adam, potentially Black Adam and another film, I think it was Aquaman, just got delayed. I don't know if you saw
I did
that.
see that.
So now they're coming out
Mm-hmm.
2023. I'm so sad. But if it means they're taking their time with these projects and just making sure they're developed to really good integrity, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I'm all for it. I'll take it. It's always just kind of a little anxious when you see things being delayed, especially with the we don't know what comes around the corner. Sometimes like things get scrapped, but they're in the late developments and stages, so
Right.
they're just kind of I think finding out the details. But I'm excited overall, and I can't wait to see when the next film comes out for this franchise because it was just so good. I think 3 hour long superhero films are just the future. This is what we live in.
Mm-hmm.
I want
Yeah, I
it.
get it. Okay, I'm gonna bring us back to our initial screen here. Hold on, I got a lot of screens open over here.
You got a lot of monitors, man. Like,
Yeah,
period.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like I have like the monitor in front of me that this is the main one to where I talk to you. I have another computer, a totally different computer over here where I make music, and then I actually have a TV up here to where I can actually watch the live screen just to make sure it's not bugging out, you know, and making sure everything is good, you know. So I just want to make sure from here on out I need these screens to make sure everything is great, you
Trauma.
know. I got the PTSD of our previous streams of losing audio and stuff glitching out. So I'm just making
That's
sure
okay.
the internet is great, the audio is awesome, and yeah. So,
Yeah. So you got all your screens set up. Ready, ready. I got like boxes to unload here.
mhm.
I got like a bed full of laundry over here. But I will get some of this set up
Right. I was gonna
eventually.
say
I
something. I
got a
was like,
whole
cause I was watching just some previous clips when I was updating the Instagram. I was like, she doesn't have her pictures or her Marvel comics behind her, you know?
I'm a collector, guys. I'm a collector. I have posters. I got like original art. I, of course, got my Funkos. We're just trying to set up a nice little corner, a nice little nook, and it's good quality and form. Don't you guys worry. It'll come. But for now, just, enjoying my little plain Jane wall back here. But I mean, great
Yeah.
episode. I've missed this. Week away, and so all in all, guys, this is good.
Yeah. Next week we will be back. Initially, say earlier this week, I was kind of giving promo that was like, "Hey, we're gonna be doing 2:30, but we decided to do our normal time today, and we're gonna be back on that schedule next week, back to our regular 3:30 time. So tune in next week, same time, same network, same hosts, Chill and Grace, and
I thought you were going to say same hose.
no, same hosts with a T. And we will catch y'all next Friday. All right. Y'all have a great one. Grace, you have a great weekend. And we'll see y'all. Later.
Goodbye, guys.